Tuesday. Now it's 9 o'clock, but I really do appreciate you all being here. This has been a long time planning, so I'm just grateful. A couple logistics things. We have food, breakfast in the back provided by Cooking with Love and Chef Britt. Fantastic individual. Food's great. I love the French toast. Bathrooms over here. Make sure, if you haven't yet, you've signed up at the front of the room. We have our name tags, trying to go with the little system here to easily identify yourself with the colored dots. But before we really begin programming today, I wanted to start us off with a grounding exercise to kind of like set our roots into the rest of the day. So I'm going to invite up Dr. Mitchell to lead us through that grounding exercise.
Good morning. So my plan was to do something short. However, I realized this morning that starting today and going into February, we're going to start to see our planets aligning. Did anyone know that? Which doesn't always happen every year. And so it's a significant thing. And so I realized that I just want to set a tone here. So I want to be able to share with you this centering practice that was written by Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams. And she wrote a book called Radical Dharma. And it really speaks to those who are working at the intersection of teaching and healing and social justice, which is what I think grounds us here today. So I want you're in your seat, but I want you to really find yourself rooted down in your seat. And whether that means moving your chair a little bit or just kind of feeling the weight of yourself on the chair. And I want you to really try to root down where you are through the bones. Let your weight be held by the chair. And then to the best of your ability, get your feet on the ground. Let your feet be felt beneath you. And maybe this means not allowing yourself to lean back in the chair, but just allowing yourself to be upright, connected, rooted to the ground. And then we're actually going to extend to the top of our head, our crown, feel it going up to the sky. And in doing so, we allow ourselves to feel our full length and the dignity that is inherent in each of us. Inherent means we do not have to earn it, and it cannot be taken away. It is a choice, and it is ours. And as we extend ourselves into the earth beneath us, we feel our sense of integrity, dignity above and integrity below. It's like a taproot of a tree. And we find our full length, which is ours by virtue of being alive and connected to life, before we even find our full width. And maybe we take our shoulders up to our ears, and back, and up to our ears again, and back. And let's feel the breadth of our chest, the span of our shoulders, our heart exposed. In our width, we find our sense of relationship. First, the breadth of our own being, and then the space around us. And as we feel into the space around us, we can extend our field of attention to the person on either side of us. And if you're feeling more spacious, you might extend that to the person on the other side of them. And then more. And then more, just as it feels comfortable to you. Maybe you're feeling yourself up to the walls or to the ceiling. And we do this work, our work, on behalf of the rising generation and the generations yet to come. And in this, we are very aware of our front body, what faces forward, our belly, our chest, our face. We might even envision looking toward the horizon, and we see our students, our children, our children's children, generations who will live and love and grapple with the legacies of our lives and our work today. We do this work for them. And of course, our work is only possible because of the generations who have come before us, the ancestors, both related by blood and those with whom we feel another kind of kinship. We are aware now of our back body, all that is at our back. We feel the support of our ancestors, all of those who have come before us, known and unknown, recognized and unrecognized, proud and difficult. We feel their support always at our back. And all of it is meaningful only if we choose to take up this space in between, right here and right now. So we must take our place between the future generations and the past. We feel that in our depths. And finally, the most important thing, and for many of us the most difficult, is to allow our center of gravity to drop down out of our heads and into our bellies, and to feel what matters to us right here in our core, not up in our head, not in some vague sense somewhere out there, but to really allow what matters to us to be held in the very core of our belly. Energy dropping down, firing the action that we take in the world, that we take in this room, that keep us moving. And whenever we forget why we're here, whenever we feel like we're lost, we come back to what matters. We come back to what moves us again and again and again. Thank you. Breathe.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Next, we were supposed to have our panelists come up. I'm going to switch things just by like 10 to 15 minutes to allow two of our panelists to come during this time and actually just talk about what the Innovation Studio is, what we do, because there's actually been some confusion by people of like who we are and what we're supposed to be doing within PPS as a whole. So I have some slides up here for you all to follow along. And originally, I have this script written out and all of that, but since there's not many of us here, I'm probably going to be a little bit more personable during this time. Now, I come from a teaching background. I was an educator in New York City, as well as taught at McDaniel High School for 1 year, many years ago now. And the reason I bring that up is because at the foundation of what the Innovation Studio is this belief that educators are innovators. This understanding that we should be utilizing them, the students that they serve, the students that they work with, and their communities to drive innovation and change within PPS. The clicker works, by the way. So, the Innovation Studio as a whole is an in-house consultancy, so we are within PPS, and a problem-solving accelerator. Now, I want to focus on the problem-solving part of it. You might have a great idea and have a solution to it. Now, that is where the Innovation Studio does not support. We believe that we need to address problems first, and through our process, come up with the solution. Don't start with the solution, because that is what you will be forced into using in the end. So why do we exist? At the Innovation Studio, again, we believe that educators, students, and the community can work together to address challenges and develop transformative solutions to enhance the educational experience of our students. Our mission is to empower our district with the mindset and tools needed to approach work differently. Now, some of you have been able to come aboard through our culture in the classroom work, our student affinity work, as well as even the climate justice work from last year, and have utilized part of the innovation equity design process to push forward some meaningful change. All right? So through our work, starting with Big Papa. So through our work, we aim to reasonably give hope and support the imagination of others, and we do this through kindness, respect, and unwavering support. Now, I say reasonably because, again, we are problem-oriented and not solution-focused. So our approach, we embody the process, tools, and mindsets designed to advance a culture of innovation. Aligned with PPS's vision and strategic plan, we emphasize creativity that disrupts the status quo and empowers those most impacted to contribute to meaningful change. Now, this is done through community engagement sessions, as well as design teams that are developed with different perspectives in mind, and even in some cases, guiding councils that provide an outsider's perspective on the work that we're doing. Right? Really trying to build in the community-focused lens into this work. That innovation equity design process is at the heart of what we do, and it includes the exploratory design research, so our engaging with stakeholders to understand the challenges at hand, solution creation, developing innovative solutions through collaborative design, and inclusive team building, so assembling that diverse teams to ensure equitable and effective implementation. This process ensures that our solutions are inclusive, equitable, and sustainable. Now, how did we come to be? So we were born from PPS's 2021 to 2025 strategic plan. We launched back in 2021. We developed the framework of what the Innovation Studio is in 2022, as well as the Innovation Dashboard, which is a hub that allows those of you who might want access to our materials to access it. Right. In 2023, we were expanding those trainings and resources, really building out that dashboard. And then last year in 2024, we had a couple of programs go through the Innovation Equity Design process and held the first ever Innovation Summit at Left Bank Annex. And now in 2025, as I have come on board, I'm looking to reevaluate the program, really trying to get us back into schools, because again, at the heart of this work is the educators, the students, and the community. So what we do, what we offer, first is training, equipping teams with the skills to innovate, right? So you can sign up using my office hours link. If you have an email from me, I will also provide it at the end of today's session. You can sign up to actually meet with me and go through a bit of a problem together and see if it is something that might be suitable for the innovation equity design process. We have project sponsorship. So I brought up culture in the classroom and student affinity. Those are two groups right now that are sponsored projects by the Innovation Studio, and they're working on long-standing problems within PPS, right? As well as consultations. So I can offer advice, just general advice, and give you those resources. Now, to support our community, we also provide an asynchronous learning material called the Innovation Dashboard. On there, you will find videos, resources. I'll have the link to that in a bit. So you might be wondering, how is the Innovation Studio different from traditional project management, design thinking, or continuous improvement initiatives? What sets us apart is our unique focus on building a culture of innovation, embedding problem solving at all levels, and working collaboratively with our educators and communities to create sustainable solutions. We emphasize equity-driven design and the importance of centering those most impacted by the challenges we aim to solve. So I'm going to put some information up here if you would like to stay connected. They were also at the front. We have the Innovation Studio website. It has our calendar on it, as well as a beginner's guide on like what is the innovation equity design process. The innovation dashboard is that middle link that I talked about with the asynchronous materials that includes videos, resources for you to use if you don't, for whatever reason, want to talk to me. I'm a pretty nice guy, I think. And then we have the Innovation Studio Instagram, my shameless plug to try and get more than the 6 followers I think we currently have. But before we move on, we've still got a little bit of time. I open the floor up to questions, see if there's anything that you might want answered by me while I'm up here before I go away for a little bit. And it's okay if you don't have any. Nicole. So I kind of talked about it for a second, but I really want students to be the driving focus of this. Like, if the goal of the Innovation Studio, and I believe this is the goal, is to disrupt and challenge our current system, we can't utilize the current system to disrupt it. We have to go beyond that. We have to go directly to those who are being impacted by that system, and that's the students. We have to ask them, like, what is going on in the classroom that is bothering you? What is going on within the community? What are the things that you would like to see? The resources that you need to feel like you belong within PPS. Yeah. Great question. So I would say you brought up feedback and surveys and all of that. The Innovation Studio goes to them. We go directly to the schools, have conversations with the students, and I come from a teacher background, and I also worked in education policy for a little bit, and part of showing like the implementation of a policy is the plan. When did you meet with people? And meeting with the students first and foremost at the beginning, asking them what the problem is, working on the solution, and then coming back to them again with what you've come up with to give for them to actually give input is what the Innovation Studio is supposed to be doing, what we drive to do. Yeah. Okay. That being said, I'm going to transition us to our panelists. I'm going to bring up Ms. Nicole Watson. I will not give her title because she hates when I do that, but she's going to come up here and moderate a panel and leading a discussion. So thank you all for listening to what the Innovation Studio is. I'll give you all my contact afterwards, so feel free to reach out. And again, please follow us on Instagram. Thank you.
Can I still say good morning? Good morning, everybody. Can I take this down? I go ahead and get settled, can we please give Dylan a round of applause? Can we give him an innovative round of applause? Much better, much better. As Dylan shared, I'm Nicole Watson. I'm going to step in and lead and facilitate the panel with our panelists today. And I want to read their bios and then ask them to come up and join me on stage. Now, I come from Black church. I haven't been to Black church in a while, amen, but I come from there. So I need a little bit of response so that I know I'm not up here by myself. Is that all right? Okay. Because listen, when they put you on program, you got to know you're not here by yourself. I want to start with Listeha Malloy. Did I say it correctly, sis? All right. Listeha Malloy is the CEO and founder of Friday Outdoors, an outdoor ed tech company empowering people to get camping and outdoors by making the know-how accessible from anywhere. With 15 plus years in the tech industry, Listeha has led innovative technology development across automotive, robotics, and AI chat that is used by millions across the world. She was featured in Portland Business Journal as one of the top 13 startups in Oregon to watch. Can we please give a round of applause and welcome to Listeha Malloy. And feel free to park wherever you want, but it's so good to have you. All right, let's give Listeha another round of applause. I can't wait to find out more about how I get outdoors everywhere, how to make it more accessible. I want to make sure I'm looking. I know I have Aaron Frazier, who is also in the house. And I want to read Aaron's bio because Aaron's kind of a big deal. So Aaron Frazier is the executive director of the Center for Black Excellence. We can shout that out. Listen, Dr. Mitchell is excited. Okay. Prior to her role here at CBE, Aaron was a strategic response associate at a law firm in Washington, D.C. Her legal practice consisted of racial equity reviews, internal and government investigations, and congressional hearings and preparation. She has also worked on a range of pro bono advising and litigation matters. Okay, Aaron. Aaron's previous experience includes work on political campaigns, student organizing, and civil rights issues ranging from voting rights to labor law to police brutality and mass incarceration. Aaron is a graduate of Stanford Law School, which she attended as Knight Hennessy Scholar. She has 2 master's degrees, one from Oxford University, where she studied U.S. history and comparative and international education on a Rhodes Scholarship. We can snap that up. Yes, we can. And as a Jefferson Scholar at the University of Virginia, Aaron earned her BA with honors in politics and African American and African studies. She has been published in news outlets including the Washington Post and Teen Vogue, and was a 2016 TEDx Charlottesville speaker. Aaron is originally from Silver Spring, Maryland. She grew up singing, strumming her guitar, playing basketball, and teaching martial arts. Listen, get up here with your bad self. Please give a round of applause to Aaron Frazier. She said, you want it, I can do it, and all the things. Oh, I'm reading the whole thing. I will read it over if y'all play with me. Okay, I know I have 2 other panelists that we were waiting for this morning. I want to make sure and see if they're here. Do I have Tony DeFalco in the house? Okay, that's all right. We're going to give Tony a shout out, who is the executive director of the Latino Network. Can we please give him a round of applause? And then our final panelist joining us today is Daniel Guilfoyle. There we go. And did I say your last name correctly? Can you say it for me one more time? Guilfoyle, whose pronouns are they, them. Daniel from Allegheny Reservation in Western New York They have worked with NAEA since 2007 after relocating from Southern California to raise their daughter in a community that has a strong urban Native community. Daniel has worked in education for 23 years and is the Youth and Education Services Director at the Native American Youth and Family Center. Daniel serves on the University of Oregon's Balmer Institute, Children's Behavioral Advisory Board, and the Board of Directors for Cascade AIDS Project, Our House, and Prism Health, advocating for and supporting a healthy community in Portland. Can we please give Daniel a welcome to the panel? Thank you all for being here. I think it's interesting. I know that those of you who are sitting on this other side won't be able to see me, but since it's like Black church, you are free to move where you want and sit in a pew where you can see. So I want to start a little bit, one, by shouting out this team for the innovative the space that we are in, and the conversation that we're going to have around innovation. And I know, like many of you, you like me are thinking, how on earth could we talk about the Center for Black Excellence? How can we talk about being outdoors? And how can we talk about urban Native communities and talk about health and wellness? And what does that have to do with innovation? So before we start, I want to get to know you personally first. So my first question is, and all of you should answer, what is on the playlist right now? What is getting you out of bed? What is the deluxe groove jam? What is your bust a step? What is it? What is it for you? What is on your Spotify playlist? It doesn't have to be innovative. It could be old school. What are you currently jamming out to right now? Tony or Daniel, Lesteja, or Aaron, do you guys want to start?
Sure, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Skano Dine, Skano Daniel Anandawaga. Peace to all of you. My name's Daniel. I am Anandawaga. That's the Seneca Nation. That's our federal name. But we're reclaiming our language, which we're reclaiming our names. It's really important. So I like to make sure that I share that with people. So let me think. Playlist. I love house music, and that really gets me going. I like soul, funk, all kinds of stuff. But what really gets me going is house music and anything like that. So lately I've been listening to Batty on the Floor. It's a Honey Dijon song that she did it with Jamie XX, and it just calls it out.
It's
a lot of fun. Yeah,
it's
it
got
does.
the groove.
It's really good.
Okay, I love it.
Thank you.
Pass it to Lesteja. What is on your playlist today?
All right. Let's see. And Lesteja, fun fact, since we're getting to know each other, means forever safe. So yeah, I know how important names are. And let's see, so what's on my playlist? So I'm gonna be real, I have a 4-year-old, and so a Moana soundtrack is playing. Has anyone seen the sequel yet? And yeah, we have a lot of Disney, but yeah, I'm a fan of like 80s music, quite honestly. That's usually playing when my daughter's not in the house.
Good. Aaron, what's on your playlist? What are you listening to?
So at the gym these days, it's a lot of Doechii and Kehlani, depending on the time of day. But honestly, in times like these, I have to admit, I've been listening to a lot of gospel. So
Listen,
somebody's got to do it.
take me to the water.
And
Listen, I love it. I appreciate it. And I think that that's important, right? We tend to Dylan's point, start right with solution, and we skip the problem space. And I think what makes us connected is not just the ways that we're innovative, but also the way that we play, the way that we have fun. So that's important. We'll keep the play engaging in our discussion so that those of us in the space know what you really do, so that we can really ask some questions around innovation and the ways that you are stepping in creatively. Why don't each of you talk a little bit about the work that you do, not just in title, but theoretically, but physically, what are you actually doing in the space, so that we can then talk about what that work looks like innovatively. Aaron, do you want to start? What is the Center for Black Excellence?
Sure.
What do you do?
yeah, happy to start. So if the CBE, right, has a vision that can be summed up into just a few words, it's that we're trying to build a world where every Black child is believed in and is enabled to thrive. And our theory of transformation, right, because that world is one that looks very different from the one that we currently have, is that to do that, we have to fully resource every child. That's not just one piece of the puzzle here and another piece of the puzzle 4 years later, but it is getting kids everything that they need every day that they need it. And so our approach to that is really rooted in community, right? It admits and accepts and acknowledges that there are so many people who are already doing really good work. And while this is an innovation summit, I think some of what we need is going back to basics. So are we teaching kids to read? Do we know if we are? It's also, are we connecting them to the community, to the elders around them? And so our work is largely around coordination of existing organizations and entities, and trying to build some cohesion in how we build that world together rather than apart.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I can't wait to unpack a little bit more about some of the work that you're doing. Lastea, tell us a little bit about Friday Outdoors and how this work shows up for you every day.
Yeah, is this on? Hello, hello. Perfect. All right. So Friday Outdoors, we're about empowering people to get camping and outdoors, and we're really doing that through outdoor education and just making it accessible. And I'll say, growing up, I had never been camping before, and if any of you were at Pitch Black when I presented, you heard a whole sea. Yes, like you heard a whole sea of like, ooh, right? Because the idea of us, particularly Black folks and just minorities, saying, hey, I'm gonna go out camping and spend the night in the woods, like that is a very innovative idea, because it's something that unfortunately, with so much of our connection being to land, over the time we've kind of disconnected from it. And you said going back to basics, you know, nature is the best preventative health. It's the best healing that there is, and it costs nothing. I mean, except for your shoes. I mean, that I will say, it costs nothing but shoes. But, and so really what Friday Outdoors is doing is normalizing that all of us, and especially Black folks and brown folks, need to feel just as comfortable, just as safe getting out there, because it is for us. And I can tell you, when I asked my 99-year-old great aunt, did they go outdoors? She said yes. So despite all the things that we don't do this, my 99-year-old great auntie said that they were doing it. It's for us too, just as much as anyone else.
I love that. It's for us too. Get your butt outdoors. It's pretty much what Auntie was saying.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you for sharing. Daniel, what about you?
The Native American Youth and Family Center, we work to support our youth and families through positive cultural identity and education. The urban Native community in Portland, there's over 380 identified tribal members that access our service, 380 different tribes. And so it's a very diverse community, and we seek to bring people together in community, which is something I think that we could all use. A lot of families come to Portland, you know, for a lot of reasons. A lot of the tribes that we serve here aren't from Portland. I'm not from Portland. My tribe is in Western New York. And I was blessed to be able to live on those lands that fortunately we were able to hold on to small pieces of it despite all the attempts of colonization and manifest destiny. And so what we do at NAIA is we work with our community members to create that space. We have 10 acres up in Northeast Portland that last year we were able to pay off the mortgage for. So that's permanently now for our community. That's native land there. Thank you. And so we really work, you know, in my department and throughout NAIA to look at the whole individual, look at the whole family, look at the whole community, and help create balance in people's lives. You know, a lot of our work, you see the way it's typically done, there's a problem, you fix it, you move on to the next problem. That linear way of thinking doesn't usually work for our community, and so we look at that holistic individual, mind, body, spirit, and context. And what those different things mean, they may be different for each individual. And so we work alongside people to find their strengths, always looking with that strength-based lens instead of that deficit mindset that too often we get stuck with. News loves deficit mindset, you know, and so we're living that reality now, and so we try to create that safe space for families, for communities. We serve all self-identified Native Americans. You don't have to be enrolled because those enrollments are tied to treaties that were not there to support us, and we recognize that, and so we're reclaiming our past and we're cultivating our future together with community.
Listen, I'm not sure who put this panel together, but it's loaded up here. It feels like there's this intersection between the innovative work that you all are doing and schools. But then there doesn't seem like there's a connection. I want to really draw on that connection because oftentimes we think that schools and learning is for them over there. And what I hear this space really elevating is that it's for us. Can each of you talk a little bit about what nexus you see in education? Like, let's say, I know you mentioned outdoor education, and sustainable education is something that we don't oftentimes consider ours. What are the ways in which the work that you're doing at Friday Outdoors connects in that educative space, and how can we think innovatively about moving that work forward?
Yeah, absolutely. There's such an intersection between education and the K through 12 system and the outdoors. I can say it's really a complement to each other. So often I'm literally having flashbacks to being a student and working through problems and figuring out how is this going to help me in what I want to do when I graduate. And I would literally just go out on the trails, and all these ideas would come out about the person I was becoming and really who I want to be, how I would get there. And something that we've been working on is really providing youth a space to say, hey, like, the outdoors is where you can really have quality time with yourself, with nature, but also to each other, to let these ideas that unfortunately they get suppressed with all the day-to-day things that are happening, all the distractions, all the notifications popping up, all the things. And so it's been really transformative to see what happens when you take a group out camping, or they go out with their own family, and I love getting those messages of how transformative 48 hours in nature can be. Going out to dinner, there's so many things that people go and do and spend all this money on, and yet it's so simple. Go out into nature and take away all these things and find comfort just being out there with yourself and with others and the trees. And it's amazing what people come up with what they want to do and how they see moving forward. So I really see outdoor education and youth having very much a complement to the education that's happening when they're in school.
It's funny that you mentioned that. Those of us who are born and raised here in the state, I can say I'm Camp Collins, and someone would know what that means, right? Okay. So there's some Camp Eagle Ferns, and I forget what the other, there was some other. So outdoor school is something that if you went through junior high or middle school here in the state, it was something that was a really big experience. And I remember when I was in school, it was like a week long, and you got the cute little wood cookie, and you made burgers on like this little Folgers can. I won't tell you what we called it back then, but listen. But I didn't understand how important that was to my education, and I didn't understand that that too was education. And thinking about sustainable education now, it's something that I think we should be having more conversations about. So I want to come back to this, but I want to move to Daniel and thinking about the connection between outdoor education and thinking of some of the work that you were doing in NEA and just some of the connection that you were making to place and identity. What are the ways in which you find the connection in education and the work that you're doing at NEA?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of ways that we work with our youth in education and outdoors. You know, we know that our community members and a lot of people, a lot of kids, learn better by hands-on learning, right? Being out there, moving around, touching what they're doing, sitting in a chair and listening to somebody talk at you just doesn't work. But we still do it, and it's still happening, you know? Our daughter goes off to U of O. She's sitting in a classroom with hundreds of kids staring at somebody. Is that really a good innovative practice? No, it's something we've been doing for a long, long time. And so we recognize that hands-on learning experience is incredibly important. At NEA at the beginning of COVID, when there was food insecurity, we started turning the fields behind NEA into a community garden. And now we have the Wapasnani Shaku Garden. It means the basket in Chinook Wawa, which is a jargon from this region. And so our youth, our families come together in community and they work in that garden. We don't just plant food for our food boxes and for our kitchen, but we also grow traditional indigenous food from the area. We listen to our elders and community members about what they want to see grown. So we've got a big area for traditional indigenous medicines and herbs. Things like stinging nettle, horsetail. These are all good things for your body. And they add a lot of nutrients, a lot of those minerals that people instead just get in a pill that you probably just pass right through, right? And you lose that connection to nature. So that's just one aspect. But a lot of our work also has to do with helping our youth and their families get through the trauma of education. And you know, we've got the indigenous Indian boarding schools. My grandparents went to them. He said it was a living hell. We believe him. We know it was, right? And that led to him sending his kids away from home, away from their culture. You know, and so those are that's just one of the negative aspects of education that we're working with. That and a lot of our youth and their families, you know, they may not have that stability at home, so they come into school late. Teachers don't like that, right? And they probably had no way to get there on time, you know, and there's that added stress. They might not have clean clothes to get to school. They might not have X, Y, and Z, right? And so that school experience can be really traumatic for a lot of young people. And I know from the experience that I have working in education, and I'm sure there's science to back this up, that if you get to third, fourth grade and you don't enjoy school, you're not going to enjoy school. It's going to be a place you don't want to go. And we see that happening. You know, kids start dropping out. They don't see value in it. Their parents don't see value in it. And so we work with our youth and families to get through that. And then we also work with the schools to help them understand our families. You know, we hear it sometimes, oh, just get over it, just get over this. How do you get over trauma, right? You got to live with your trauma and get through it, but you don't ever get rid of it. And so it's important to acknowledge that and to support our educators, help school staff understand that. I can't tell you how many times I've been someplace, I'm like, yeah, we're working with this, you know, this family, and I get they don't even look Native, right? And there's over 540 federally recognized tribes, let alone all the tribes that aren't federally recognized. The Chinook up in Seattle, not federally recognized, you know, but we know about them. They still exist, they're still alive, they have a tribal council, but they're not federally recognized, so they don't have the same rights as a recognized tribe. You know, and it's just this kind of steamrolling effect. So we try to help families come together, get through those differences between each other, but also work with the schools to make it a safe and welcoming place. Because we know for a lot of our families, black and brown kids aren't accepted there. And then you know, some people don't even recognize that, well, that's a Native kid. They've got the same thing that brown Native kid. It's just that tribe is 1,000 miles away. People look different. And I think it's important to understand that, to get through stereotypes, and these stereotypes oppress us all.
I appreciate that. One of the things that felt connected to some of the work that Aaron is doing, you're talking about Native babies, right? And this understanding the impact that schools have, and then how we help schools reach our babies that don't oftentimes look like the teacher standing in front of the classroom. And that feels like that really connects to some of the work that Aaron is doing in the Center for Black Excellence. And we're talking a lot about Black and Native students and understanding much of the ways that schools should be supporting. And I know this might feel different than outdoor education, but Aaron, talk a little bit about the connection that you are making to Black children and Black youth in PPS, the work that you're doing in Center for Black Excellence.
Absolutely. So, and I want to go back actually, Nicole, to something you raised at sort of the start of this arc of questions, which is that we often feel like the schools aren't for us. But that in itself is an educational failure, right? Because Black people founded public schools in the United States. And so every public school is for us. And that's a reality. And I'm not from Portland, right? I'm from the other side of the country. And I know for a fact that schools can teach black children, right? That white people can teach black children. That they don't hear is something very specific and something that we can fix, right? There are models all over the place. And again, I say we don't have to recreate every wheel. We know what wheels look like. We just have to add them to the car. And so that's sort of the first piece. I want to get rid of every notion that schools aren't ours. They are. We can learn, and we do learn, and we educate. And so that's piece number one. As it relates to what we are doing with the schools, right? I think part of it is that because we know that schools can be a place that cultivate genius and joy for black children, that, yes, shout out to Dr. Goldie Muhammad. But because we know that they can be those places, and because we invest billions of dollars in a public education system, it means that as taxpayers, right, we deserve for these schools to do whatever it is they're supposed to do in those 6 to 8 hours a day. We have already paid for it. And that is why at the Center for Black Excellence, of course I'm gonna be in a room where they're talking about how we design a culturally specific black preschool classroom over at King, right? Of course, we're gonna be talking about how we can make sure that this history curriculum is one that doesn't harm, but instead empowers every person in that classroom to go out and be a citizen of the world rather than a citizen of a particularly white neighborhood in Portland. And so that's piece number one. But piece number two is that we also know that learning is something that kids are supposed to do everywhere, right? We know that they do it everywhere regardless of whether we intended it. It's why we ask parents to be considerate about what they say around kids. It's why we switch up our language around a toddler, because they're soaking it up. And so that means we have to ask, outside of those 6 to 8 hours a day, on those weekends, what are we doing to ensure that kids are learning too? And so at the CBE, it's not just how do we make sure that classroom is doing what it should, but it's also how do we get black kids connected to Friday Outdoors so that on Friday evening, they're getting another few hours of learning. Because everywhere they go, they're learning. It's just a question of what are they learning from and who? And how do we make sure that the things that they're soaking up are actually propelling them towards education in all of its definitions. That's not always defined by college going, right? But whatever that definition is, we have to make sure that we're getting kids connected to it and enabling that.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna ask a real silly question to this panel. Erin has pretty much already answered it, but she might kind of follow up with a ... and answer it again at the end. Can we do this? What Erin leverages, what this panel is talking about is race, but we haven't really named it. But we're talking about our Native, our Indigenous, our black children, our brown babies that are in a system where oftentimes they don't get to see themselves. In predominantly white spaces, they may not get to see each other. In the curriculum that they are using and reading, they may not even be able to see their cultures. And thinking about the work that we have ahead of us and thinking about where that lives in innovation, can we do it? Is there hope left? Is there a conversation we get to really have innovatively about how we go and center and serve babies, and specifically babies of color? When we think about the work that you all are doing in your individual spaces, I want to make sure that we're leveraging our hope. So let's stay high. Can we do it? What does that look like for Friday Outdoors? I know that feels like a silly question, but without thinking through the hope piece, we'll get really focused on where we know we can't be innovative. How can we be innovative around hope?
We can definitely do this. Like, I mean, and I'll tell you, we talk about the ancestors and the grounding. I'll tell you, my great grandparents' generation, there were 11 of them, and their parents made sure that each of them got a college education and their master's degree in a time when that was not the norm. So if they can do it, then we can do this, right? And I'll say with Friday Outdoors, outdoor education hadn't been innovated in years, actually centuries. It has been taught the same way that it's been, which is that you go to a class, right, an outdoor class, And you sit there with the same instructor and you do that. And I can tell you, when I started getting into the outdoors, I was always the only person of color. So and it's just one of those things where I personally saw that there was such another way that you could teach outdoor skills that was much more conducive to individuals and particularly much more culturally inclusive and talking about the roots, the why you're connecting to the land. And so with that, I created Friday Outdoors as a platform that people could access when they wanted and how they wanted, make it work offline, all these things that had never been done with outdoor skills. And people who have used it, that we have 88% of folks who have experienced increased self-confidence. 80% of our users identify as a person of color. And so it is possible to innovate in spaces where people didn't think. And coming from the tech industry, I would say that with what's happening right now, technology-wise, like, this is huge opportunity, especially for education systems, because AI and the technology advances that are happening, it has the power. I would say it's going to be transformational for education and healthcare. All the things that you're hearing about with AI, and it's really up to us, every person in this room, every person who's part of the school districts, to be leveraging that. Because to not be leveraging technology advances that can really much better serve all of our students, especially our Black and brown students, that would be like, that's doing a disservice. So yes to hope, and yes that we can really start creating new ways of learning that pay attention to individuals. And that does, I will say, it's going to take a lot. It's not going to happen overnight. So I'm sure we'll get to the how, but yes.
I appreciate it. Daniel, I know you talked about being our youth hands-on learning, being kinesthetic learners. What about you? Is there hope? And what ways can we connect some of the work that you're doing in our schools?
Sure, of course there's hope. I mean, we're all doing it, right? And there's always been barriers. Dominant culture hasn't ever looked out for us, so why would we expect it to happen now? That hasn't changed. It's just even more apparent. And yeah, there's a lot of struggles ahead, and we're going to keep on doing it. You know, we're here for the community's here for us, and hope is what we have in abundance. You know, I see graduation rates go up for youth in our schools, you know, and sometimes it's hard at first. I know we opened this alternative high school at NEA in 2007, and it was hard. And it was hard for a while. And now there's a culture in this school. The students are far more welcoming than they used to be, right? There's still gonna be beefs. These are high school kids, right? And we also have a lot of youth that are comfortable being who they are. We have trans youth, we have queer youth, and they're out and they're comfortable, and that's important. We have kids from all spectrums of community, and you know, it's not just Native kids, and there's a welcoming there. You know, we teach with a Native lens. We try to use, you know, bring people together in good ways. We ask the youth for their input, and they tell us what they want. We're currently looking for a new principal, and we met with the students, asked what do they want to see in a principal, and it's taken a longer time to find that principal, because we're not just putting a body in there. We want somebody that is there for the kids and that the kids want there, you know, and that's important. Too often we just put the adults in the room, and we don't get that input from the youth. You know, and so that brings that, you know, they get buy-in and they feel like their voice matters. That's what's important for us, is making sure that our youth's voice matters and our community members' youth voice matters, or community members' voices matter. You know, we're stewards of pots of money that are very large, and that money needs to go back into our community. You know, we're stewards of that money, and it's really important. And I you know, hope, I'm not, the political landscape isn't going to get rid of my hope. It may make me grinding my teeth and frustrated, you know, not getting the money we need from different organizations, you know, or if they pay you 3 months late. That's hard on us, but we've worked hard to make sure that we have the stability to continue doing that work and call them out when they're not doing that. And, you know, I know my organization isn't the only one, but that money that comes through, it needs to come through quicker. You know, we meet their deadlines, why don't they make our deadline? So, you know, and that's frustrating. That's frustrating, but that doesn't get rid of hope. you know? That just means I gotta do more, have somebody make more phone calls and say, hey, you gotta pay us, right? You're not living up to your end of the bargain.
Listen, I think there's a commercial that says, it's J.G. Wentworth, it's my money, I want it now. Because I think one of the things that I appreciate that Listeja mentioned was about technology, and I want to spend our last 20 minutes talking a little bit about this forward idea of technology and how Black and brown communities can ensure that we're on the innovative part of that, cutting edge of that technology and not left behind. When we think about language models like AI, ChatGPT, and Gemini, and DeepSync, and all of these different technological advances that are here, Aaron, you did a little bit in technology, but a lot, right? So mass communications, did some things in the tech world. Listeja, I know you did as well. And thinking, Daniel, of course, when we think about Native and Indigenous community, definitely technologically advanced. How do we innovatively engage in this discussion as Black and brown and Native communities? How do we ensure that we are what we would say at the table and not on the menu? How do we ensure that we are being innovative with technology and how we can engage in AI? Aaron, do you want to start?
Sure. So I think one piece, particularly like in this ed tech space, right? And so that in the education technology space, that's a really broad category, right? And so sometimes the AI is being used to ensure for all kinds of administrative purposes. That's actually, I would guess, is what the bulk of money in this district and most school districts is being used for when they say we're implementing AI, right? They're using it to do attendance differently. I won't say better. I'll leave that to educators who have to use it to determine that. But it's for attendance, right? It's for tracking, it's for inputting data that we actually don't have the staff to review, right? And so no one ever analyzes the data, but it's in there somewhere. And I would argue that that's being on the menu, right? It's so that twice a year when we want to talk about various gaps, somebody can finally pull all that information and say, look how bad it still is. I think if we wanted to use technology in an innovative way, in a way that puts us at the table, that looks like purchasing different curriculums that are more culturally responsive and that are making use of that technology, right? It looks like putting students at the center of what that is, because the point, right? Why do we care about attendance? Because we assume that a child needs to be at school to learn. So let's use the technology that helps them learn, rather than that redoes all these systems where, like, people have taken attendance for a very long time. I hope that we know how to do it. And we are taking away from the learning time, the teaching time, by making folks relearn those systems rather than giving them tools to teach in those innovative ways that are research-backed. And so that would be kind of my first suggestion when we're talking about how we take us off the menu and put us at the table.
Listeja, what do you think when we think about technology? And I know that moves you a bit, diverts you a bit from Friday Outdoors, but not really when we think about technology and we think about where we've advanced. What are the ways that you think we could be innovative when we think about AI and mass communications and technology, as broad as Aaron eloquently put it? How do you think we could look at that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal is always, how do we help students learn so that when they graduate, they're ready to go make an impact in the world? No matter what they want to go do, they have to be ready. And so when I think about technology serving as a tool to better learn what they need to, the technology is actually there, and we've seen, there's Khan Academy, which was probably one of the earliest ed techs. I mean, my daughter's already reading, she's doing math, she's 4 years old, and she's used this type of technology. And I just think about, we know going through K through 12, there's even high school level where they're still struggling with meeting these levels. So I just think about what an opportunity that there's technology out there, honestly, that already exists, but really the innovation is getting what's already available and getting it into the systems. That really is the challenge. I also think about the fact that the US is what number 12 in the world for education, despite us being a first world country. Like, we have all these resources, there's all these tools. It kind of feels like, why wouldn't we want to use them? And right now is as good a time as any to really do the work to say, what do we need for our students to better learn, and what is available to make that happen, and start integrating it. I'm sure it will be very disruptive, but I see a future where Portland School District is number 1 in the country. What would that take?
I love it.
Our students deserve that.
Our students deserve that. I love it. Daniel?
Thank you. I think, during COVID, everybody was working from home, right? Or taking school from home. It didn't work out for a lot of people. So I think we definitely need to keep technology at the forefront, but we also need to keep people at the forefront too. And too often we just expect that young people know how to get an email address, right? Or sign up for something. And I've seen a lot of young adults not know how to do those simple tasks. So sometimes we got to go back to those basics and make sure youth and their families know how to use these devices. And those devices need to be able to be kept current. We get computers and I know it happened in our agency, get these fancy new Mac computers, no software for them. So what are you going to do with it, right? And this was back in the aughts, so GarageBand wasn't on there and some of these other fun things. So I think that we need to remember that these are tools, and they need to be kept sharp, and we need to. So I think there's just a lot of things there, right? And then also I do believe that keeping that connection, it doesn't always have to be in person. There is some parts of that, like Khan Academy. I think it is so useful for our youth and our families, and we need to make sure that they have space to be able to do that. That was another aspect of when people were at home. Internet was slow because everybody's on a device, right? Or those young people might not have a place to do that work. And so it's not just the technology, it's that infrastructure around it that I think is really important. I'll stop there.
I appreciate it. Can we give our panel a round of applause? Because they're killing it. And it feels like a really good time to maybe just take a pause, and maybe I have a slew of other questions that I could spend the last 10, 15 minutes asking. But in the spirit of inclusion and being innovative, maybe there's a question that some of you might have, a lingering thought or an aha moment, something lingering that you might want to ask some of these panelists. Please don't be afraid to raise your hand. Dylan is in the back and can signal when we might need to pass you the microphone. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Are there any questions so far? Okay. You have a question? Well, do you want to stand up? You want to come up? Can I come to you, sweetheart? Okay.
I was wondering why you didn't invite any NAIA students to come and share their experience at NAIA. And
Well, I don't think we had the opportunity to. We did have, our students are in school today. For many of them, attending school is really the primary thing that they need to be doing. And so that might have been my lack of foresight and saying, hey, let's bring some of the NAIA kids, right? And also, we try to protect their time. Too often in the past, we're pulling kids for a lot of things, and typically it's the same kids, and then they miss out on that educational experience. So I've become more hesitant about pulling kids away from school, personally.
and I also wanted to ask, how are you going to help students that have a hard life in general and they can't learn the normal way?
So some of the things that we do is we utilize a lot of wraparound services to help support a youth, whether they're at our school or they're in a comprehensive school. We do have youth advocates that work with youth and their families. It can be, a lot of them are pretty stretched, but they will go to IEP meetings with families. They'll sit in on disciplinary meetings. They'll sit in class with students if the teachers will let them. But that's kind of more the harder stuff. A lot of it is building those relationships with young people and their families so that they feel connected and they're willing to let us know where they need support. You know, we don't tell them what they need to do. We try to work alongside them so that they identify that. You know, at NAIA, you know, whether the youth goes to the school or they access our services, like I said, sometimes it's that making sure that it's stability at home. You know, whether it's keep making sure that the lights stay on, making sure a cell phone bills so people can stay connected. That's really important to us. We also try to create experiences for the young people. Our youth and elders honoring, for example, or our powwows or winter gathering, things like that, to help bring people in. Oftentimes it's those community events that let people, you know, new people to the area know about our services.
I just want to shout out that question. Can we give a round of applause for that question? It takes courage, one, to be the first person to ask a question. But it's super important that we take the question and realize that that is the learning, right? The goal of the Innovation Summit is that we will take it to our babies so that this feels more representative of the kind of creativity and design learning and thinking that they would be most inspired by. And so I think we see that we have some room for growth and some room for us to lean in. So we appreciate that deep feedback. And some room to think critically about how we make sure that our babies are up here asking and answering questions in the future. Thank you so much for that question.
Got another one.
Do we have
over
another
here.
question?
Yep.
Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for your work. I have a question about building out intra-community supports and knowledge. I know we talk a lot on building on ancestry, and I love Dr. Mitchell's share about ancestry, and also want to recognize that as an educator, sometimes in these spaces, queer students, students who have diverse identities that aren't, traditionally recognized. I'm thinking students with disabilities, students who learn differently, like this student shared over here. In what ways do y'all aspire to be innovative around the ways that we support queer students of all of our intercultural backgrounds, and also just the ways that we uplift connection for students that maybe are not in the mainstream discussions around supports?
That's beautiful. Do you want to? I think it's an important question, Mariah. Thank you so much for asking, because I definitely wanted to hit on the statement that kids who don't learn normally. I was kind of I don't want to use the word triggering, but what is normal education? What does it mean to learn normally? And wanting to push back on that dominant ideology that, like, I don't learn the same because I learn differently, or because I'm a kinesthetic learner and need my hands in the soil or need to touch it, that I'm somehow not valuable. And that goes back to Aaron's point that schools are for us, and needing to reclaim that identity, but also needing to reclaim that posture. Do you all want to speak to that a little bit about how you color outside the lines, a traditional education, and encourage our babies to feel the sense of belonging no matter how they show up in the classroom and beyond?
For sure. So there's this quote that kind of immediately came to me with your question, and it's from some folks speaking during like the womanist movement, right? So Black feminism, put shortly. And it's that all the men are Black, all the women are white, but some of us are free. And it's the idea that, yes, everybody, even when we're talking about folks who are fighting for rights, we're still coloring with one, we think it's one color, right? We think that there are these really easy to maneuver boxes, easy to stack boxes, right? Somebody's got it, one box has to be on top, one box has to be most visible. And I try to think about that piece of freedom, which is that it shouldn't be that some kids get to go to school and feel free, right? It shouldn't be that some kids get to go to school and feel unraced. There was a documentary project called The Whiteness Project. When they'd ask white folks, they'd say, talk to me about race. And all they could do was talk to you about Black people, right? They couldn't think of themselves as people with a race. I imagine that if you were to ask a lot of straight folks to talk to them about sexuality, they would start talking to you about queer people. they wouldn't think of themselves as people with a sexual orientation. So at the CBE, a lot of the reality, first off, is that Oregon is a state where a significant number of the Black folks are not only checking the box Black, right? Portland is a pretty queer city, right? And so I think that all of those pieces have to be a large part of how we think about Blackness and cultivating spaces for students. And so CBE works to try to advocate for the school district to actually make good on its promise to open a physical center for Black student excellence. And when I talk with that internal PPS team, Quinn is here and he's always very good at bringing this piece up, right? It's when there's a physical space, well, this might make or is there going to be a sensory room for students where all this open space and collaboration is too much, right? It's overstimulating. Is there going to be, are we going to talk about how some of these organizations that we partner with and that we want to keep partnering with aren't always good to kids who are queer, right? They don't always think about kids who don't look the way they think they should look, who don't talk the way they think they should talk. And I think that just to your point, right, it's that yes, it's absolutely a part of our thinking. But the reality is every child can learn. And so if they are not learning, then we are not teaching. And that is, because this is service delivery at its core, right? The service is the teaching, the product is the learning. And the student outcomes are how we know whether or not we actually achieved our goals. And so it's not about what the input is, it's about the output. And we have to change, whatever we have to change about this factory line approach to education to make it so that the output is where it's supposed to be, we have to change it.
Do y'all want to hit on that at all? Thank you so much for expounding on that, Erin, about queer youth and identity and how we think through untraditional systems of learning.
Yeah, I can speak to what we've done with Friday Outdoors. With Friday Outdoors, we've really designed for inclusivity of really meeting people where they're at, right? And people come from so many different backgrounds. And even when we share a similar race, right, we still come from, we might have some shared experiences, but everyone's starting point for particularly camping in the outdoors is so different. Like if I asked you guys, what's your definition of camping? I guarantee we'd all have a very different definition of what it is. And so what that means is we're having to think about people's different lived experiences, their different identities, and have a way for them to still see themselves reflected in the outdoors and know that's a space for them. And I know we've had folks who, they actually, I remember one in particular, oh my gosh, they were out in Atlanta. So as a Black woman, as a Black queer woman, and with her partner and their kid, and I can't tell you how many identities that is that you're feeling, that you can feel oppressed and not safe in outdoor spaces, yet they recognize why it's so important for them to get out there. They used us as a resource to be like, all right, we're gonna go get a tent, we're gonna go do this, and they did it. And now their son is doing it from a young age, they're doing it as a family. So I do think it is important to design with that intention that people of different identities can see themselves reflected. And when that is done, like, I know we're seeing the benefits, we're seeing that happen, and so people are getting the benefits of the outdoors that we all deserve.
Daniel, do you want to share a little bit? You've already talked a little bit about trans youth and identity and how NEA is showing up in that space. Do you want to talk any more about how you support trans identity and youth and ways of untraditional or non-dominant learning?
Yeah, for sure. A number of years ago, probably almost 10 years ago, we started a sexual and reproductive health project along with other community-based organizations to adapt and implement inclusive and comprehensive sexual and reproductive health education. From that, and working with the youth, we saw that there was a huge need for an affinity space for our young people that identified as queer, trans, or two-spirit, or any of those intersections. And so, fortunately, we were able to do that. And now that group is still growing, our Two-Spirit Safe Space Alliance. And they don't just support each other, but they also support the whole community. About right before COVID, we're holding a queer prom at NAIA. Started out about 30 youth. We tied it with the QSOC conference at PSU, and then we had over 200 youth come to NAIA. And so then we started really hustling for money, and that's one of my biggest jobs, trying to find money for things and trying to find money for things that are not traditional. And so private foundation money, family foundation money was a good resource. And so we've been able to grow that queer prom and be able to invite youth from across the region. Last year we had over 340 youth at the Sunken Ballroom at the Portland Art Museum. It was a swanky event. We had performers and DJs and a medic on hand just in case. There was a low sensory space. And that's all in service to our youth and our community and trying to uphold youth because it's not happening in other places, right? And it's an event that I always really protect because I know that there's people out there that for whatever reason hatred burns hard in them. And that's something that I think we're all going against, is that hatred that somebody thinks if somebody's getting something or somebody's doing something, that means they're not getting it, right? So this isn't for them, but this is an event for our whole community. And it's something that we're gonna keep on doing. It's expensive. It probably costs me about 50 grand a year to do that. And that's not grant funded, right? Grants aren't gonna pay for that. And so that's looking for that other money to do it. And so we're all gotta hustle and we all gotta do that work and create space for everybody.
I love it. It's like Jerry Maguire, show me the money. When I want to wrap, and I believe we have our next portion of the event that is about to begin. My final question to the three of you as we conclude, when you think about the work that you're doing and how it is sustained, and we think about hope, if you had a magic wand and you could instantly innovate one thing or multiple things, what would it be? What is your magic wand? Would it be the money that you need? Would it be the center that you have been vying for? Would it be we're all camping in the same way? What's the magic wand? What is the innovative thing that you wish you could do right now in this moment? But as we close, each of you.
Whew.
I know I had to save the heavy one for the end.
If I had a magic wand, it would be that every Black person, every Black Portlander here, that I'd be like, hey, let's go camping. And they'd be like, yeah, like we're going, right? And I know that when that happens, it means that not only Black people, but everybody has literally found their healing, their peace in nature. And I tell you, when that happens and you find liberation in nature, it has so many benefits on every other aspect of life. So I know when that happens and I can ask any Black person, hey, did you go out? Yeah, oh yeah, let's go. That's when I know that we have gotten to a level of freedom where we are not held back by these cultural norms that we didn't even start. Because it has always been for us. To your point, education's always been for us. Outdoors has been for us. So that's my magic wand. And I will say, people downloaded our app when I pitched at Pitch Black 2 years ago. And guess how many messages I get? I went camping. So I know what my magic wand, it's already happening. So it just takes work, hustle, vision, hope, all the things.
Please let's give Lasteja Malloy a round of applause. Everybody's going camping. Aaron Frazier, what is your innovation wand, the magic wand that you have to innovate?
I think it would be to change system-wide how we talk about delivering resources to kids. And it really would go back to where I started, which is thinking about individual children as people who need a lot, right? And for us to no longer talk about how we gave them a little something and then be surprised that the data doesn't look any different, that the outcomes in classrooms aren't any different. And instead to say, this year, we gave every student that we serve, that we purport to serve, everything that we knew they needed, and we knew what they needed because we asked. We asked them, We asked their parents. We asked all of the other adults within their community nexus who we know just a little something about them that we might not. If I had a magic wand, that's what I do.
Wow, please give it up for Erin Frazier, her magic wand to ask the right questions and then give the babies what they ask for. It sounds simple, but radical and innovative. Thank you. Daniel?
My magic wand would have to be pretty big because I would just love to be able to grant to everybody, not just our BIPOC communities, but everybody, a heart that led with empathy and caring. I just think that there's not enough of that right now. There's too much of hate. And I lead my life with optimism and hope. That doesn't mean that I feel great every day. I do go to therapy. I do talk to people to help work through some of that. But really leading with love and caring and kindness is going to get us all to where we want to be, and not just the people that don't want to follow. I do believe that if we continue that way with that hope, with that kindness, and with that caring, it can be infectious. And that's an infection that I want.
That's an infection that I want. We're going to drop the mic right there, because that's an infection that we want. Please give a round of applause for our incredible panelists who are doing this radical, innovative work. Thank you so much for the gift of your time and your wisdom. And I want to shout out all of the communities that you represent. We are grateful to have you here today. I cannot wait to get outdoors. I cannot wait to lead with heart and center the things that are the most important to the community that I serve. Thank you so much for your time today, y'all.
I want to thank the panel again one more time. They were fantastic, as well as our moderator, Nicole Watson, who stepped up today to serve in this role. In full transparency, I had talked to them yesterday about doing this, and they really did a fantastic, fantastic job. Up next, we have Dr. Mitchell again with the students from I Am More with the Mindset Challenge. Now, while they're coming up, I'm going to ask one thing of you all. As you can see, again, still not a lot of people here. I would like to fill in these tables a little bit more. So if we could just kind of bring it in, get a little bit closer. It'll also help in the afternoon when we go into our design sprint. So while they're coming up, please go ahead and do that. And I believe you're going to introduce them, right? Here you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Okay, I'm going to invite the young people onto stage. And they're going to talk a little bit about their experiences and what they need or needed from teachers. Come on up. Come on up. And we also included the young man who's here because we want to respect the fact that we want to listen to youth voices. And each has their own experience that they'd like to talk about. Y'all have enough of this? So I'm going to hand over the mic after I tell you a little bit about I Am More. So I Am More is an acronym called Making Ourselves Resilient Every Day. And I founded this organization because I was a former journalist first for 25 years. And then I became a teacher, a high school teacher. And I realized that some of the same things that I had experienced as a young person were still happening, particularly as a person of color. And I wanted to create an organization where young people started to understand their own brilliance and their own ability to speak for themselves and to advocate for themselves. And so started providing opportunities to train young people to get in front of the mic and talk to adults about what it is that they need. So we are here. Who wants to begin? I want you to introduce yourselves, actually. So before you speak. Okay. You understand?
Should I pass the mic and we all introduce ourselves? Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kendall Brown. I'm a senior at Jefferson High School. I want to first thank Ian Moore, and again, give it up for the panelists and those who were on there. Some amazing insights, so thank you so much. And also to the moderator, you were amazing. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the power of connection and what that looks like for students in education. To talk about the power of education, I'm going to talk about a study that happened called Rat Park. Is anyone here familiar? Oh, okay. It's called Rat Park. Thank you. I know you're. So I'm going to talk about the study that was done before, and then I'll talk a little bit about Rat Park. So the study that was done before, basically they took a bunch of rats and they had them in cages, metal cages, and they offered them two things. They offered them water and then water that was laced with morphine. And everyone take a guess. What do you think the rats picked? The morphine, right? So they kept the rats in there for a couple of weeks, and all of the rats got addicted to morphine, and then they all died. And that was the basis of our education around addiction for humans for about 20-25 years. Until they decided, well, what if we redid the study, but we set it up in a way where instead of all the rats being in individual cages, offering them two things, let's make it more of a naturalistic environment, right? So they gave them bedding, they gave them food, they gave them other rats to be around, and it was like a park. It was an intricate system. And again, they offered them two substances, water, and then water that was laced with morphine. Now that time, what do you guys think the rats picked? Water. When offered connection, when offered relationship, all of the rats chose water over drugs. Let that sink in. When offered relationship, when offered the opportunity to be with one another, they picked that over morphine. And then we decided, this is revolutionary. Let's try this on humans. So when we look at recovery for addicts and we look at people who have been addicted to drugs in the past, what we see is the solution and the best way to combat it, is relationship, emotion, connection. Every person in this room would pick connection over drugs. It is when we give up on people, it's when we give up on relationship, when we give up on connection, that drugs become the answer. And the same thing goes for education. When we give up on students, when we give up on learners, when we give up the people who are in the education system, connections fall and relationships aren't built. And that is when the disconnect follows. An example of people who have perfected great relationship building in education are sports coaches. Has anyone played a sport in here? Football, basketball? Right. Does everyone remember at least one of their coaches who helped them? And you think fondly back at them like, man, I learned so much from them. You learned so much because that relationship was there. Because they took the time to tend to your needs. They took the time to realize what you needed and a passion that you had. My challenge is, what would it look like if we replicated that in the classroom? Or, to even go farther, if we replicated that at the district level? That if we decided that connection was more important than banking, that if we decided that relationship building was more important than the next thing. So the next question is, well, how do we do it? How do we involve relationship connection into everyday learning? Now, bear with me now. The first starts with asking someone how their day was. Ask a student how their day was. Ask them what they're passionate about. If they say nothing, challenge it again. Ask a student, how can I support you? If they say nothing, challenge it again. Ask a student, what can I do for you? If they say nothing, challenge it again. It is our job to make sure that we are creating relationships with students who feel like it is lost, because that is the problem. Now, as a high school student, especially one in PPS, I know, and we've all experienced, the disconnect between us and the district. The mentality that has been created is us and them. There's the students, and then there's the district. Moreover, there's a vilification of the district that has been created. So for a lot of students, the problems at their schools start at the district level. And I can't say that we're wrong. And I can't say that I disagree. And that I think it is because of the lack of connection that most of these problems are created, because no one listens to the students. Because no one asks us what we need. And that is why there is no connection between students in the district. Now, if you're working through education, it doesn't matter if you're a janitor, if you're a teacher, if you're a principal, or if you're just someone who works at the district, it is your job to build connections with the students that are in your schools. Because it is only through connection, and it is only through relationship that students will want to learn. The students are going to try. They're going to strive for better. They're going to push for more education. So what I leave you all with is kind of a bit of a challenge. Now, I don't think everyone in here works at the district. No matter what you do in your life, I urge you, I implore you to build more connection and build more relationship. Try it, and then see what changes. See how much better of a time you have. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Olivia Edwardzel, and I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm not a public speaker, so I appreciate your support. I am 16 years old and I go to Jefferson High School. My experience with I Am More in the Soul Restoration Center has been one that strengthens community and furthers connections and opportunities. I believe resilience and connection is very important when it comes to the mindset and behavior of adults. And what that means is the willingness for youth and adults to form meaningful connections that can positively impact the future of the youth. As an example, my connections with the adults of I Am More have given me many positive opportunities, such as being able to attend Caldera Arts Summer Camp, an art and community-based program founded by Wyden and Kennedy Ad Agency, and even being able to have my voice be heard in front of City Council, where I spoke about how, as a Black creative, I would wish to see more spaces for Black youth to foster their creativity within the community. I'm very grateful for these experiences and credit them to resilience and connection. While I do see this outside of school, my experience in school differs from this a lot. In school, students are more focused on the assignments they have due at the end of the week and the projects and presentations and the overall stress that comes with the school system than actually forming meaningful connections. I have noticed a divide between the teachers and the students, where students see teachers more as strict enforcers of rules and policies than as the guiding mentors they should be to the youth. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Viola Loforti de Vigal. I'm a freshman at McDaniel High School. And I believe in the importance of students having a voice in their communities and having power in their communities. Okay, thank you. Ever since I was really young, I've always had a lot of ambition and I've always wanted to make change. I used to go to Vernon, which is a K-8 IB school. And thankfully there, and just throughout my life, I've been granted opportunities to make change. At Vernon, starting in first grade, I didn't think lunch was long enough, so I decided to organize a little protest to make lunch longer in the cafeteria. instead of shutting it down, my principal instead invited me to his office to talk about why this was important to me and what are the next steps that we could take to make that a possibility. Keep in mind, I was only in first grade. I was like 6 years old, so that was like a really big deal to me. In second grade, I was a really big theater kid. And so I wanted to put on a production of Hamilton, obviously. So my school didn't have a theater program or anything like that. So instead, I decided to put it on with my friends. I asked the principal if we could use the auditorium, and he said yes, and invited community members, like staff members and parents. Later on in 8th grade, we had an assignment in English where we had to redesign an area of our community. I redesigned a corner of the school that was really in shambles. It was like falling apart with a bunch of desks stacked up. I redesigned it in, a nice way. And the next day I come to school and it's redesigned. Throughout my whole career at Vernon, I always felt really respected and I always felt really heard, no matter what age I was. And I think that also brought me to where I am today. As I said before, I'm a freshman at McDaniel, but I'm also one of the elected freshman representatives. Thank you. And this now gives me an opportunity to represent my other peers and actually make bigger change in my community. This is not only important for me, but it is important for my whole generation. We are the generation that is going to be greatly impacted by the current generation's decisions, the current generation in power's decisions, and what we are going through right now, we are going to have to deal with in the future. So we need to know how to be able to sit down at the table and actually make decisions and use the power that we have. You as educators and you as people working with a lot of youth have the power to give us power. You have the opportunity to give us the microphone or let us lead something. And that's really important for people my age. And it's very important that you allow us those opportunities. So I kind of just want to leave you with that idea. And thankfully, throughout my life, I've had a lot of people who have given me power. My parents, for example, and also Dr. Renee Mitchell, who has always given me opportunities to speak in front of people like this. So I encourage you to do the same with your students and with your youth. Thank you.
I wish I had something planned, but I just want to come up and share my experience as a troubled student throughout school. I believe that not everyone learns the same way, and there's a lot of people out there that they don't have the personality to just follow rules and do whatever people tell them. And I, don't think people like that should be punished for being themselves. Ever since I was young, I've never been a rule follower. I do what I believe is right, and that's how I've lived my life. But I've been punished my entire life for wanting to be myself and do things I want to do. And I'm always seen as there's something wrong with me for that. And I just wanted to share an experience that I've been chased by security guards at my school for they thought I was going to run when the social worker came to come talk to me. And, they expect me to trust the system and the district when, I'm being chased inside a school during passing period. And, it's hard for me to trust teachers and the district when, every day in class I'm always looked at and they think I'm going to misbehave. So I get sat in the corner by myself a lot for, just wanting to be myself and express how I am. And I feel that the district really needs to take into consideration that not everyone can just follow their rules. And that's pretty much all I have right now.
My name is Nima. I'm 14. I'm a freshman at Jefferson, and I just wanted to talk about my personal experiences in school and like what it's been like since like kindergarten to like now. And I feel like growing up, students like feel like the need to like have to listen to the adults in their building, but I feel like if the adults aren't making it a safe place for us or making us feel like welcome, then that's not something that we're gonna wanna like do. And I feel like at my school, I have my English teacher, and I don't like being in her class because it always feels like I'm gonna do something wrong. One time I got up to sharpen my pencil while the class was silent, and she snatched it from me and told me it was disrespectful. And in that moment, I was shocked because I didn't think there was something wrong with that. But I just learned from that to always just like, I don't know the word for it, but just like, I just feel like it's important for teachers and the adults in our building to build strong relationships with the students that they see every day, because that's something we're gonna live with for a long time. And I feel like we wanna have strong relationships with the people in our building, because if there's something going on at home or anything like that, then school should be a safe place for you can like talk to other people in the building to like get help or just ideas from like other things that you need. And I just feel like I just like want you all to know that like it's always important to have those relationships with the kids in your building and stuff like that. And thank you.
So I don't know if anyone has any specific questions, but we just wanted to make sure that the youth have an opportunity to share with you some of the things that they need from their perspective. Did anyone have any quick questions? Yes.
Earlier this year, I was teaching 6th grade math at a middle school in Southeast, and I would often see students, who were, it was like the hallway club. They would leave class and look for a subs class to go and hang out in, or just, duck out and try to find something else to do, and it was pretty obvious they were not having a great time in school and didn't like it. And sitting in on staff meetings, a lot of the suggestions for how to re-engage those students are like, maybe we can give them snacks. Maybe we can, give them a certificate that they can hang on their bedroom wall or something like that. And having been a middle schooler who I lost track how many times I got suspended in middle school, I know that ain't gonna work. And I'm curious what can be done to repair the relationships that are so obviously broken in schools like that, and bring kids in who have already decided school's not for me, it doesn't matter in my life, and it sucks.
Who wants to respond?
I know a lot of students like that, and almost all of them have a bad time or a bad life. They have either split up parents, just mental health issues, drug addictions, and they have so much going on, and trying to also process that and do schoolwork at the same time is pretty hard. And especially when, me personally, I feel targeted by some teachers, so it's hard for me to want to sit in their class and trust them and do the work that they give me, when honestly I don't respect them. And giving them snacks and stuff is not really gonna work, because they're gonna come and get the snacks, but then they're just gonna go back to what they're doing. But I feel like if we were to gain their trust, I guess, that, or try to find an alternative way for them to learn that will give them that freedom that they want, but also being able to learn and grow as a person.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So as we know, PPS, first of all, good morning and good job. So as we know, PPS is about to install the cell phone policy. And I work at a place that believes in instead of fighting technology, to bring it in and help and be a part of who they are, recognizing how important cell phones are to many of our students. So I would just like to hear from you guys on what do you think are going to be some of the challenges that is going to happen in the school once the cell phone policy, where they have to go in the pouch and all that kind of stuff, how that's going to be received in the schools.
I'm really glad you asked that question because I have a lot of ideas on it, actually. Thank you. So I'm going to talk for a second. So I disagree with the cell phone policy for a plethora of different reasons. One of my main reasons is because if students are found without their phone, if there's an accident, or at my school, if your phone rings in the pouch, then there's a disciplinary letter. So you do this, you get this, referral, suspension, expulsion. It's a ladder of how many times it's that happened, right? My theory, and watch it happen, my theory is that it's going to disproportionately impact students of color over and over and over again. Because as we see, black students specifically are 3.5 times as likely to go through the disciplinary action than any other race or student in America. And when disciplinary actions like that happen, such as suspension, referrals, it makes students not want to do things even more. And so it's going to happen again. So once it happens once, then it's going to happen twice, and then so on and so forth. And when more disciplinary actions lead to more students dropping out of school. And then they don't want to pursue further education, they don't want to go into trade school, and then the school to prison pipeline starts right there. That's how it starts. That's like area one. And I think that the phone policy that was just in place is going to perpetuate that system so much. Not only that, but we're teaching students not to use the tools that are given to them. Now, whether we like it or not, we all use our phone in our day-to-day life. Like, I can be crazy, and so I think it's time that we try to integrate phones into our education system rather than trying to leave them out. I'm sure most people here use their phone at their job. I know I do. And so I really do want to see what it looks like to integrate those two instead of thinking of them as two separate entities. And I think that the other argument around it is students aren't engaged in the classroom. Students are not building relationships with their classmates, and there's not that common conversation between the teacher and the student anymore. Make them want that over their phone. And so if students are picking their phone instead of talking to you, then I think that we need to make students want to talk to you. And I think empathy is how we lead with that. I feel like, especially with the new cell phone policy, and at Jefferson we're getting yonder pouches starting February 3rd, it shows no empathy for the students. Phones and a main social media app called TikTok are based upon like psychological studies to make people addicted to one thing. So the TikTok system runs on the same system that a lot of gambling machines do to make people addicted to it. And so in a lot of ways, people are genuinely addicted to their phones. And people's phones are their only daily habit. So the only habit, the one reinforced thing that they have every single day that they know is going to bring them dopamine is their phone. And so to take away most people's only daily habit like that is stupid, in my opinion.
I also want to add that students that are always on their phone in school are usually students that misbehave. And taking away their phone is all it's going to do is just make them want to misbehave in other ways that could potentially be worse than just being on their phone. And at least when they're on their phone, they're not, misbehaving in any dangerous ways or insulting other students or anything that would bother anyone else. And when they do add the phone policy to McDaniel, all it's going to do is make the students mad and want to rebel against it. And I could get why taking away phones could be helpful, but it could also be a bad thing for some people that, are always on their phone, because it's kind of a hobby, honestly, for some people. They like to check their Instagram or post or text their friends. And me personally, when I'm in class and I go on my phone, it's usually because I get overwhelmed or, just sometimes when I feel anxious, it's a distraction for me. But taking that away from someone who does get anxious and uses that to cope is just going to hurt them and not help anybody.
Hello. I have a question. So I want to ask, you all talked about connections, relationships, trust, care. My name is Quinn. I work for the district, so I'm not in your buildings every day. So my question is, how does a person like me, who can't be in your building or can't be in your classroom every day, build or gain your trust? Like, what does that look like for people like me who work at the district and not in your individual buildings?
Yeah, and I think one, it's a great question, just given the nature of it. I think it comes from advocating for students and then showing what that advocacy looks like and the tangible things that they can grapple to understand, like, oh, this person, these people, this group is advocating for me and the things that I want. If you listen to students, no matter where it is, they are explaining what they want and their needs all the time. Whether it's this panel where we just talked about our wants and needs, or whether it's at schools, it's there. If you want to listen to it, it's there. And so I think it starts with your actions. If your actions are tangible, if your actions have a result, students will see that, students will understand that, and they'll go, these people are advocating for the things that I know that I need. Ergo, there is a relationship there. They care. The care is there. How do we build the trust? Is if it happens again. This is a habitual thing that will continue to happen if the relationship is there. Trust is built. So I implore you to make sure that your actions and the work that you're doing has a result for students, and that you're explaining it to them to make sure that they know that it's there. Because a lot of things happen, we're sure, but we don't see them, and so it kind of goes out of our peripheral, and it's not in our understanding. And it goes right back to the same few problems that we think are happening again and again. But if you show, hey, there was this problem, and this was X solution, and we did it, then we're gonna understand how important that is. So I think it's communication, and it's restoration.
I'm also gonna answer that question. Pay attention, right? This young man is on the stage because it felt like he had something to say. And all it took was me paying attention and inviting him on this stage. I've never met this student before, but I had a sense that he wanted to speak about his experiences. He doesn't know my name, I don't know his name, but he was welcomed to join us. And sometimes as adults, we need to just stop expecting the student to come to you, but just watch, pay attention, and be willing to bring them into the conversation. Thank you all for allowing these young people to share their perspectives. Yes.
Yeah,
Here you go.
I'll switch to this.
Personally, I just want to thank you all. That was incredible, and it's one of the things I feel like I've struggled with most leaving the classroom, because I strove to develop those connections with my students, and I worried when I left who would be there to do that. And your call, you specifically said only through connection only through relationships do students want to learn. I believe that. And I hope we can all take that and not just apply it to the classroom, but like through the Innovation Studio, how are we applying that to make sure that their voices are being included? That's what I hope to do. I've said it several times today. That's what I will be striving to do as I continue to push the Innovation Studio. And yeah, sorry, I'm getting emotional because it was just so good. Yeah, it was just so good. The lunch protest in first grade, you said? You said a lunch protest in first grade? That's incredible. I mean, like the advocacy you already had at such a young age is just amazing. And somebody brought up, how can you trust the system when they don't trust you? How are we going to continue to build that trust and move forward? So please, again, give the students, give Dr. Mitchell a huge round of applause. Up next, we have Kareem Weaver, our keynote speech before we go into lunch. Very excited for him to come up here and speak. He is the CEO and founder of Fulcrum, working on things like literacy as a civil right. So very excited to have him here today. He's been doing events for us yesterday as well as this morning. So please welcome Kareem Weaver to the stage.
I have a live on, so I'm good. Clicker, thank you, appreciate it. All right, mic'd up, ready to go. Good morning, y'all. Good morning. So first of all, how many of you here are current or former educators? Do you mind raise your hand? Okay. She had to make it raise his hand. Okay, fantastic. And then others are community folks, right? Folks engaged. Okay. Well, my topic today is a different kind of innovation, but it is an innovation. It's about making it plain, right? What do we actually need to do to get our kids to read? And I'm gonna keep it as simple as possible. And I'm gonna have you do some stuff, so you might have to get your phone ready, right? Like the last speaker said, we need our phones. Well, guess what? You kind of need your phone for this. So go ahead. Now, I have a QR code there. If you scan that QR code, it'll pop to the slide deck so you can look at it on your own. There might be some things you want to check out later, some videos and some things. It's there. I may not go over them right here, right? But they're there, so you have the resource, okay? All right. If you're good, give me a thumbs up so I know. Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. Yay, us, let's go. Let's go, Innovation Studio. So Kareem, first of all, I have a question for you. Does anyone here have a sense of what percentage of students in Portland Public Schools are proficient readers? Do you know? Well, let's say, for example, 5th grade. What would you think? 70%? Okay. Anyone else? 60%? Okay. Huh. Interesting. Half or less? Interesting. Interesting. I'm not going to give you the answer, you'll see. But it's this, so the question is, how good is good enough? And what are our expectations? And how can innovation get us where we want to go? Because I would assume that we want 100% to be reading proficiently, right? I know I want 100% of my kids. And I want 100% of my neighbors' kids to be able to read proficiency. Okay, let's go through it. So the NAACP, national organization, National Association for the Alliance of Advancement of Colored People, just put out a resolution. It was approved in July, signed by the board of directors in October. And these resolutions were written by the president's team, president of the NAACP. Actually, President Biden was there when this was happening in Vegas. But President Derek Johnson, NAACP, put forth this national resolution, which now covers policy of the entire nation in terms of the NAACP branches, means they're supposed to advocate for this stuff because it's now policy of the organization. And what he said was, in this resolution, that the board of directors, this national thing, what he said was, the kids aren't reading well enough, and that this is a civil rights issue. And the innovation is that we actually know how to fix it. So we have to commit to fixing it and doing the things that has proven to work. Who'd have thunk it, right? So that's the innovation. We're going to teach our babies to read, and we're going to use what works to do it, because we haven't been doing that. I know, right? She said, how silly is that? Okay, so here is something, when we think about student achievement and kids being able to read, we often wonder, well, what actually helps kids to learn? What are the different factors? I mean, you'll hear people in schools all the time talking about, well, we got to do this, we got to do that, and here's a new thing here, and we got to, well, what actually makes a difference in terms of kids learning? I mean, what if we had a list, and you knew that these things here impacted learning X amount, and this thing impacted learning Y amount, and this thing impacted learning at Z amount? Wouldn't that be helpful? Yeah, that would be cool. Well, guess what? Doggone it, there's a list. Who'd have thunk it? So if you have that pulled up on your phone, you can just touch you can touch the picture, or you can type in that URL, but it's a live link, so you can just touch his face and it'll go to the list. And when you go to the list, that's a list of the things that have the biggest impact on student learning. 300 million students worldwide are represented in the research that has formed this table that you're looking at now. 300 million students. 80,000 meta-analysis. A meta-analysis is like a research of the research, right? Yeah. Check out that list. If it popped up, give me the thumbs up. Sweet. Thank you, Dylan and the tech team. So I have a question for you. Since you have the list in your hand, does your school district focus on the things on the list? What things are they focusing on? What things have the biggest effect on student learning? Just take a look. So I'll give you 30 seconds. Just take a look. What has the biggest effect on student learning? Go through the list. And there's some things on there that have a negative effect on student learning. What are the things that have a negative effect on student? Check it out. I have shown this list to board members of school districts around the country, and they say, oh my gosh, you mean the thing that we talk about and argue about and debate about all the time, it doesn't even make a big difference in student learning? Yeah. So one of the innovations is to actually prioritize the things that have proven to make a difference. I know this isn't rocket science. You're like, well, of course. But that's actually an innovation, to actually focus on the research. You hear people all the time say, oh, the research says this. The research says that. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. The research said this right here. This is the research on the research. So when you go into that parent-teacher conference, when you go in a school district, you say, Madam Board Member, the research says this, and this is a civil rights issue. Are we focused? So anyway, so what are some of the things that make a big difference? And what are some of the things that don't? Well, you see the group of things right here, right? Summer school. And I'm not up here to make a political statement. This is just the facts. It's just the data. You argue with the data. It's just the numbers, right? Listen, it just is what it is. There's the stuff. There's just some of the things. Number 140 on the list, summer school. Now, it does make a difference, right? It does make a difference, 0.23, that's a reasonable effect size. Are there any students here? Any K-12 students? This is your slide. Because you see that number 188? When you go to say, excuse me, Mr. Jones, You know, I would really like to do problems 1 through 30 odd, but according to the research, homework actually doesn't have a big effect on learning. And I've done 2 problems already, and I get the concept, but to do more, according to the research, this isn't me, Mr. Jones, this is the research. Like, why are we doing this? Be careful. But you know, we do need to question our assumptions, though. Part of innovation is a willingness to question the status quo. Why are we doing this? It's just the way we've always done it, as opposed to looking at what impact it has. Then there are these other things, these little elements of a reading program. And they have things, they have a higher impact. For example, what Portland Public Schools is trying to do right now is they're trying to bundle those things together to create a reading program. They call that the science of reading, right? Repeated reading is fluency, but that's a big difference than some of the other things. I have a question for you. I got to move kind of quickly. I got 45 minutes. I have a question for you. If you like to cook, raise your hand. Anybody here like to cook? Really? Really? Okay. So here we go. I have a scenario for you. Let's say you have some exchange students coming to live with you for the summer, right? They're going to live with you for the summer. Maybe they come from France or something, but they're in your house, and they're going to eat your food, and you have 10 of them coming. And of that 10, one of them has their own money, they buy their own food. They really don't need you. Like, they come with the money in their pocket, and they have their own unique palate, and they're good. They take care of themselves. Okay, that's 1 out of the 10. Then you have 3 other kids who, they pretty much eat whatever you cook. They're not picky. We love those kids. They're not picky eaters. You cook it, they'll eat it, right? Doesn't matter if you boil it, bake it, fry it, saute it, they're good. Just feed me, and I'm good. Then you have 4 kids, 4 out of the 10, who they've got to have broccoli. They got to have it. If they don't have broccoli, they're not going to grow the way they need to grow. As long as they get their broccoli, they're fine, but they got to have it consistently and regularly. Broccoli. There's some vitamins in broccoli. There's K and there's A, and they got to have it, right? In order to grow. And if they get that, you know, they may have some trouble every now and then, but for the most part, they're going to be okay. Then you've got a couple kids who, medically speaking, they've been tested. They've gone to the doctor. They've tried all the different innovative technologies and all the different substitutes and vitamins and things, and come to find out they have a medical issue that requires them to have broccoli daily. The other group does too, but this one, it's diagnostic. Like there's an issue. We would just say they have an issue physiologically, and if they don't get their broccoli, their vitamin K and vitamin C, when they get their blood tested regularly, listen, they may just fall out. It happens. Now, you're in charge. You have the budget, the money, the transportation. You're the chef. You're the cook. When you go grocery shopping, what are you going to do? And why? What are you going to do? You only have so much money. What approach are you going to take to grocery shopping? Would you mind just telling your neighbor right quick? Just tell them. What would you focus on? Go ahead, tell them. Interesting. Yo, you see where I'm going, huh? Yeah. Now, yes. What would you do? Okay, so you want to know the store because what? Because of your money. So your primary concern is your money. No, what's your primary concern? To feed the people. Okay, anyone else? What's your primary concern? What are you going to do? What approach are you going to take? What about you?
We decided that broccoli is going to be really important. And I suggested a hydroponic broccoli, like
Did you hear what she says? A hydroponic growth system for the house so we can grow broccoli, so we can grow broccoli just like in the backyard, out the bathtub, wherever we have to. We're going to have broccoli on demand. And we're going to be innovative in how we design the acquisition of that broccoli. But we got to figure that out. But there might be some kids who say, I don't like broccoli. Especially that group, what was that one group? The second group that eat whatever you cook. Hey, broccoli again? Every day? Like, come on, man. Can we get a pizza every now and then? Like, what is this? Right? What would you tell that kid? What would you say? A lot of people would say, well, you know, it depends on who you are as a cook. Now, if you're my grandmother, Rodessa Rue, let me tell you something. Rodessa Rue could take broccoli and cook it 50 different ways. Matter of fact, you wouldn't even know it was broccoli. You'd think it was chicken. A real chef can take the materials and work with it. They're not going to complain about, I mean, you got to have good ingredients, but if that's what you need me to do to be all right, but I'm not going to have somebody falling out in the living room on my watch. Okay? Because I care about you. Well, guess what? In education, and this is what the NAACP was saying, the kids got to have their broccoli. To become good readers, they need certain things. That's the innovation. They have to have it systematically, explicitly, and directly, consistently. They got to have it. If they don't have it, guess what? They're going to fall out of society in many ways. They got to have it. Now, there are some people who say, well, we don't really need it like that, right? The green group there, they can learn it anyway. It doesn't really matter. Like they got their own money or they eat whatever they'll learn to read however you teach it. But you have 60%, they got to have their broccoli. They have to have those things in the chart that we said, those things on the right-hand side in that box. That's the broccoli. That's the innovation. To get that systematically, explicitly, directly, every day. And what the NAACP is saying is, I know you think social justice is about marching with your protest sign. What the NAACP says, yeah, that's fine, that's two, that is two. But this is social justice. Kids have a civil right for their reading broccoli. And they shout it out for the whole world. So as you're figuring things out and going to board meetings and writing letters, all that, put that on the menu. Skip that. Well, no, I won't skip it. Come find out, most of the people in schools, they don't really, the teachers, the principals, the superintendents, and all these folks, that's not their background. So they don't really need broccoli. So it's difficult for them to understand, why y'all need so much broccoli? Why you need the phonics and comprehension and fluency? Why you need that? I didn't need that. They're the survivors. All right, keep it moving. Now, I don't know if you can read that or not. Can you read that? So, this is online. This is on Facebook. And there is a group, there's an anti-broccoli group out there. There's a group that's approaching reading a different way, and they have some products to sell. And it's very popular. They make a lot of money off these products. And they were on an online forum, and they met some parents online who were pushing them. They need broccoli. You got to give them broccoli. You got to give them broccoli. They need their phonics, their phonemic awareness, their vocabulary, their comprehension, their fluency. You got to give it to them every day. We need better curriculum. We got to use stuff that works. They're like, hold on. You messing it up. Why should we turn the whole system upside down for the 20% of kids who need the broccoli? Only 2 out of 10 really need that stuff. Have a medical thing, they're dyslexic or something. Why are you going to turn the whole thing upside down? Part of the innovation is we're not leaving any kid behind. That's the innovation. We actually care about the black kids and the dyslexic kids and the American Indians and the Latinos and the kids living in poverty. That's the innovation, actually caring about all kids and designing our programs to service all kids. Because the truth of the matter is, if you learn how to cook broccoli well, all the kids are going to be all right. They're going to be able to eat. Is this making sense? All right. Thank you. For those of you who are in the schools and you figure, hey, I would love to know more about this. How can I learn how to deal with this? How can I support this? There are some books there. You can click on it, and it'll take you to more information about that. Now, I love this slide. I do. So imagine if you were the dark green, and they said, we want you to design an innovative way to feed people. And this is a chance for you to show off your culinary artistry, your skills. You've been watching the Food Channel. You want to demonstrate how fluent you are in culinary etiquette. And so you get to design a system, you're probably going to design it like A. To show how good of a chef you are, right? This is my chance. I'm going to be on Cooking Today. But if you're someone who is mindful of the kid that needs support, kid that needs this consistent access to broccoli, you're probably going to make sure the kids have a straight, direct path to what they need. You're probably going to build C. Part of what we have to do as a community is make sure that our system leaders are designing things that work for all kids. That doesn't overcomplicate it. I understand you learn to cook in France. I understand. But just get a crock pot. Just cook the thing. You know, it's like sometimes our kids just need it straight so they can get what they need. Does that make sense? For some of you who know how to cook understand what I'm saying. If you don't ever use crock pot, then don't worry about that. Nothing wrong with a good crock pot. All right. Now, how do we do it? What does the coaching look like? Especially for those of you who are in schools, this one's for you. I can show you better than I can tell you. This is a movie with Denzel Washington. You can never go wrong with Denzel Washington, as my mother would say. And he is, in this show, it's a little clip of a movie. I have like 3 of these clips. He is responding to a kid who has a need, right? So I want you to watch him as he's watching her and tell me what. We have to have better coaching and support. We want our kids to win in life. When they crack open a book, when they take the test to get into college, the ACT or SAT, when they go to apply for that, we want our children to win. You may not like that, but I want my kids to win. And I want your kids to win too. I want everyone's kids to be successful in the pool of life. You with me? But as a good parent, as a good steward, parentis locus, as the parent in charge, if I'm the teacher or the principal, or as my biological child, what was he doing first? What was he doing? Can you say a little bit louder so they can hear you? Observing. Did you hear that? You didn't hear that? One more time. Say it one more time. He was observing. Yes. And he was doing it quietly by himself from the side. There's a water view and then there's a side view. So he had an angle where he could actually see what was going on. Because if you sit right in front, it all is just come right at you. But from the side, you can see the motion. And he was just watching. In our schools and with our children, we have to observe them. Behavior is feedback. When they're doing certain things, good and bad, that's telling us something. We have to be mindful enough to watch them closely and carefully so that we can then give them the feedback. And then he lifts his hand very dramatically, very cinematically astute. The pause, right? Okay. And what was her response? She said, I never what? I never win. A lot of our kids feel that way. I never win. I've been going to school for 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 11 years. I never win. I get grade after grade after grade. I can't even play basketball because I'm ineligible. I never win. I'm getting suspended from class. I'm getting kicked out of class. I never win. I have fights on the yard. I don't win. I go home, I get in trouble because the teacher called my parent. Now I'm in trouble at home. I never win. I want to go out with my friends when my friends are playing sports. I can't play sports. I never win. This is, I know for some of us who are a little bit older and remove this, you have to think like a kid. They want to win too. All right, let's take a look at the next one. In this one, a little bit of coaching starts to happen. They start to have a little conversation. I want you to think, what are the important elements? What is he doing here that's important? And what is she doing that's important? This is a coach-coachee relationship at this point. First of all, kids know when you're lying to them. You got to tell them the truth. But what was he doing there? He was asking her questions with specific feedback. He said, "You're the fastest one in the water, but the slowest off the blocks." You only see that type of coaching happen if you're taking a side view and you're able to see the details of practice. I'm giving you specific feedback about your practice. It's your momentum, it's your proximity, it's your cadence, it's your preparation, it's your assessment, it's your feedback. It's specific. You're the slowest one off the blocks, but you're fast in the water. Now, I can tell you the experience of many parents. We send our kids to school and they love school. They're excited about school. Like they're into it and they're learning, they're bright. Then it seems like the longer they stay in, like things just, it's like, what's happening to my child? I'm telling, as a parent, I'm saying this now. And as a community, like something's happening. They're getting slower and slower and slower. The light's getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer. I'm almost ready to pull them out just to save their life. To keep the light bulb from, I'm telling you, this happens all the time. So he's saying, no, actually, you're not slow. You're actually fast in the water. You're slow off the blocks. I can give you specific feedback now because I've been watching you. Does that make sense? Part of innovation is not, we just don't do things just to do things. We're trying to solve for particular issues, but we have to be observant of what those issues are in the first place so we don't waste our talent, time, and treasure. And the next one, the question is, how good is good enough? And what makes this training he's about to do with her effective? And then I want you to think about that third dot. What are your thoughts on how the community reacts to this kind of training? All right? You with me? You got it? Here we go. How good is good enough? What makes this training effective? Interesting. Very interesting. My questions, my prompts for this, let me go back. How good is good enough? You're faster. But what's the goal? Because life, listen, I know we don't think about competitions and life, but I got news for you. There are some our kids have to do certain things. There are going to be some tests they have to take. There's going to be some things they want access to. I have a son who plays baseball. He plays at Morehouse College. In order to play there, he had to pass certain tests in high school to be eligible to play. And he has to maintain a certain grade point average or he's ineligible to play. I didn't make the rule, that's the rule of the game. Now I can complain about the rule, but the rule is the rule. And I want my son to be able to play. You understand what I'm saying? How good is good enough? You have to be able to win the game. And I know we have different philosophies about testing and all. I'm not talking about that. That's fine. You have your philosophies, but our kids have to be able to compete and win, and they can do it. They can do it. They just need good coaching. They need good support. He says, let me ask you, please tell your neighbor, why do you think what made this training effective? Go ahead, quickly, tell your neighbor. You need 20 seconds, go ahead. What was he doing that was effective? Go. Ten seconds. Okay, finish that last thought. I know it's good when a person gets up and leaves to go to a different table so they have someone to talk to. Thank you very much. And thank you very much. I see you moving. That's excellent. That gives me feedback. What made it good? How do you know the training was effective? Not just entertaining, but how do you know it was actually working? How do you know? Anyone? She just blurted out. What did you say? She met the goal. She met the goal. Ah. So first they had to have a goal, and he was monitoring the goal, progress monitoring, and she was improving, but she hadn't quite made it yet, and it kept going until they met the goal. Okay. Anyone else? How do you know the training was effective? She was engaged. Well, she could have been engaged and not getting faster, but she was engaged while she was going towards the goal. There was some people who was like, you just got to have engagement. But what if she was being engaged, but they weren't reading? They were engaged, but she was still slow in the pool or slow off the blocks. Engagement is helpful so that you can achieve the goal, unless the goal is just the joy of swimming. And you don't care if you lose the race and come in 10th place, but you had fun. It's great, you know, philosophical thing. Anyone else? I'll take one more. Yes. A little bit louder so they can hear you.
Reframing what they were doing, the goal. Overcoming her fear. Making it something that was specific to her.
Yes.
You're getting set free instead of
Reframing the struggle. Lord Jesus, thank you. I know this is hard for you. Why did you freeze? Let me take that angst. Let me take that anxiety. Let me take that adolescent angst that you got. Let me reframe it for you. You're on your path to greatness. I need you to embrace that and move forward. Get ready for it, embrace it, and go get it. And I will be behind you every step of the way. Yes. Thank you. Oh, last one. I got to show you the thing. I mean, you know. Did I get all those questions at that last one? I got them all? Oh, the community reaction. You saw the community's reaction, right? Sometimes we ask for community engagement, but we don't really mean it. We want them to be involved, but we really don't want them to be involved. Like, support us, but don't say too much. Stay in your place, but show up when we want you to. Come on now. Sign the paperwork, but don't get on our nerves. Come to the board meeting, but don't hoop and holler. Don't, you know, just stay in your lane. We're here, you're over there. Please drive for this field trip. Please donate money. Please. When the community sees you're actually taking the children and helping them reach the goal of excellence, they respond differently. I know we think that, you know, we have our own beliefs about how to engage community. That's great. Fine. But when people see their child growing and improving and thriving and breaking the bounds of what they thought was possible, man, it's a different feeling. When I was a teacher, man, I didn't buy lunches. Those abuelas took, man, let me tell you something. I gained about 20 pounds over the last 5 or 6 years teaching. I still haven't took them pounds off, but you know, Veronica's grandmother and Ashaki's grandmother and Tyrell's mom, and like, man, they come with stuff. I don't even know what that stuff was, but it was good. Just bring this to Mr. Weaver. It was a plate of beans. I'm like, oh my God, this is so good. The community's reaction when it comes from a genuine, it's a thank you. I'm proud of my child and thank you. That's the innovation. Thank you for seeing the need and looking past all the showiness and what's popular and what's trendy and what you saw on this social platform. My child is thriving. They're reading. I can take them to the library and they can go read whatever they want to. Thank you. I know you're opening doors for them. Thank you. And they don't want anything from you. It's not like pay me on the side. It pours out. I had to show you that. But let's move. I have like 5 minutes left. So here's our challenge. The people in green, they're the ones that had their own money, remember, from the broccoli, they don't need it. They're the ones that run all the schools and everything. That's the issue. They don't perceive it. And the kids that need their broccoli, they're 15%. I want you to think for a second. I'm sure you've heard of the school to prison pipeline, correct? Yes, no, yes? Yeah, you have. Okay, all right. It's not a trendy topic, but I only got like 6 minutes left. I got to go there. I want you to think about, so that 15% of broccoli needing children who got to have reading taught a certain way and they need diagnostic support, that's 48% of the incarcerated population. 80% functionally illiterate, but 48% there's a medical thing that goes with it. So I want you to think of that. When I start thinking about school to prison pipeline, don't tell me. What kids come to mind? What do they look like? What do they sound like? Just in your mind, don't tell me, just in your mind, think about those kids. You might even see a couple in your mind right now. Listen to how they talk and how they sound and all that. Think about it now. I'm not gonna make you say it out loud, but just think about it.
Dyslexic criminals. Polmont Young Offenders Institute near Edinburgh houses over 400 teenagers from all over Scotland. Many of them started offending while playing truant from primary school. By the time they came to Polmont, they were seasoned criminals.
Currently serving a 2-year sentence for assault and robbery.
For death by dangerous driving. For housebreaking and drugs. For serious assault, permanent disfigurement, severe injury.
Car theft.
Car theft.
Car theft. Misuse of Drugs Act. Assault and robbery on a shop.
For assault.
I've been a bad boy.
Jane Kirk and Gavin Reid believe that undiagnosed dyslexia may be a significant factor in leading to juvenile delinquency.
There is a body of evidence which suggests that dyslexia is fairly prevalent in young offenders, but there's some people who refute that.
The suggestion that there could be a higher rate of dyslexia inside prison than in the outside world meets with open scepticism from the head of education at Polmont, Les Wiley.
I don't think you'll link directly dyslexia with major criminality statistics, I'll be honest.
If Les Wiley is right, the computer screening will pick up between 2 and 5 dyslexics from the random sample of 50. It's time for the computer screening to begin. The computer test comprises 100 simple questions and takes just 15 minutes to complete. The study is complete. All the volunteers have been tested and the final results are in. 25 out of 50, that's half our random sample, have been diagnosed as dyslexic. It's an extraordinary result. The study suggests that undiagnosed dyslexia is linked to juvenile delinquency. Mikey's had lots of educational support, but this is the first time dyslexia has been identified. He's upset it wasn't diagnosed earlier.
I feel cheated. See, a few years of my life, see at school. I think that's fair. So I went through hell at school, you know what I mean?
Can I just say something which I think is very important, and that is that you've got to really look upon dyslexia from now on as a positive thing, in other words, a good thing. You've got to try to say, right, okay, how could I move on from here?
All I can think about is when I was at school and I couldn't do as good as I'd done, and,
well, you're quite
and they never done a wee thing, like something, just a wee thing on a computer like that, and it tells I'm dyslexic. They couldn't even do that at school for me.
Ryan, sentenced for armed robbery, is bitter when he's told the news.
You don't feel that it really explains some of your difficulties? Because
if that's the case, why wasn't this fixed before we were given the opportunity to do something about it? You know what I mean? It's a shambles, and it shows you the society we're living in, doesn't it? That's not right at all.
It's very true.
Okay, you can cut it. You mean a little test like that could show you I'm dyslexia in 15 minutes, and they couldn't even do that for me? He had his accent. You probably couldn't hear that. They couldn't even do that for me. You mean I needed the broccoli, and they couldn't even feed me that? I needed reading taught in a certain way, and they couldn't even do that? And then they want to talk about innovation and social justice? Did you hear the bitterness and resentment in his voice? Woe to us who put our own needs in front of the needs of our children. There's going to come a time where they realize what we chose to do instead of giving them what they needed. I'm not going. I can't even take. There's another one. I can't even take the next one. I'm not even going. But this is one more minute. The Department of Justice in the United States wrote a report about this. And by the way, it is intentional. I know when I said, "Hey, think about the kids," a lot of us might have flashed somebody that looked like me, younger with less gray hair. And then you see this white person talking in that language, the Scottish accent. Like what? Everybody needs their broccoli. It's not a black thing. It's not a brown thing. Listen, I can show you that with every different ethnic group. And by the way, you can link to this, you can touch it to go to the link, but I just want to show you what the Department of Justice said over 30 years ago. They said, this is not me talking, it's the jails talking. The Office of Justice said, number one, reading failure is most likely a cause, not a correlate for the frustration that does lead to delinquent behavior. The reason why they're in here is because they can't read. It's not a relationship, it's a cause. This is what the jails say. I know we got our opinions, but this is what the prison said. Then they said they're unable to decipher accurately and fluently. They can't break it down. They don't. So don't argue with me about phonics. This is what the jails are saying. This is why they're in here. And the last thing is, look at that last part. Oh my gosh. That box, that yellow box, it says a high percentage of them are diagnosed with a learning disability with no evidence of neurological abnormalities. That's the prison saying, man, ain't nothing wrong with these kids. They just can't read. They have never been taught. We tested them, come find out. They said, the school said, listen, they have a 501, they have all that, but that's not, we tested, no, they straight. They just haven't been taught. They just not getting their doggone broccoli. And the last thing I point out here is it says, the handicapped readers, the kids who are dyslexic, the kids who got all these, the ones who do have a processing difference, it says, number 4, they are not receiving the type of instruction that the research says they need. Don't talk to me about social justice when we're not teaching our babies to read. Don't talk to me about all the things we say are important when the reality is our children they're withering on the vine because we're too intransigent, we're too intractable, we're too bullheaded to get them their broccoli. Consistently, directly, explicitly, every day. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say thank you for your time. I appreciate the stage and the opportunity.
Listening to that, for a second, I forgot I was supposed to come back up here because that was so impactful. Thank you again, Kareem, for making the time to come here today and spend with us. We're going to transition to lunch. We have, again, Cooking with Love, who's providing some lunch for us. Everything's displayed out in the back. And during that lunchtime, I'm hoping you all could spend a little bit of time with our interactive stuff. We've got the Innovation Studio logo up front, as well as a display in the back where you can write down what you, if you had the opportunity to, what would you design next in Portland? What would that look like? There's some Post-its over there, magnets as well, that you can just write it down and post it up on the wall. But again, wanted to thank you all for spending the first half with us. My thought process around this was, I would say the people with if you have a dietary restriction, go first. But since there's really not that many of us, I think you could all go up there and there should be plenty of food. We have gluten-free and vegan options for those of you who want it. But yeah, this is lunch. And if you're a volunteer, if you could meet me up at the front really quickly before lunch. Thank you.